Hi everyone, it's Fiona here. Welcome to today's ARTYnoons session. Thank you to Glen Ira Council Art and Culture team for bringing this together. This is actually our third ARTYnoon, so if you've missed the previous two, they are still available in the ARTYnoon events page under the discussions tab if you're having trouble finding those. Just to introduce myself, if you haven't watched before, my name's Fiona Wood. I am a local artist and I run a local art school called Sunnyside Art House, which is based in Bentley. I run the classes out of my home studio, which is where I am now. And I've been a Glen Ira resident now for about 20 years. So I am absolutely delighted to bring you these sessions. These sessions have been based on themes that we feel are very important to us right now when we are at home a lot. So today's theme is family, and we are going to be drawing some portraits of our family or of anyone who's special to us. These ARTYnoons sessions are aimed at a range of ages. Obviously very hard to teach all ages in one session, but I try and do my best to give you lots of different options so that very young children can follow along. And also adults, if you want to give it a go, it is never too late to get creative and have a bit of fun with some art. Certainly, it's all the rage these days for some childlike look pictures and drawing. So feel free just to draw along with your child and have a go as well. I'm going to show this particular example here. I'm going to show you how to do a family portrait in a group, but I'm also going to give you lots and lots of different options today. And I'm even going to show you some examples of what I've done with my preschoolers. I'll have to be honest, portraits is probably not my main strength and my main forte. I love drawing abstract art. I love drawing animals. I love teaching about lots and lots of local and upcoming artists. But I do portraits, I have to say, every Mother's Day and Father's Day. There's nothing better than getting a picture of Mum and Dad on Mother's Day and Father's Day drawn by the kids. So over the last 8 years of teaching, I have done many portraits of Mum and Dad, and I'm going to give you examples of those as we go through today's session to give you some ideas of portraits that your children can do, even down to preschool age. What else? Oh, yes, sorry, I've just lost my train of thought there. Also, I've got these gorgeous little peg dolls along here because I want you to think about when we're drawing portraits that we don't always have to do it on paper. And I'm going to talk about different materials that you can use. So for these ARTYnoon sessions, I want you to use whatever materials you've got at home. I don't want you to have to go out and buy special supplies. I want you to use what you've got, and that is being creative in its own right. Okay, so if all you've got is some food colouring and a crayon, go for it. Or if you've just got a pencil, you can do these classes just with a pencil. Okay, I don't want you to feel that you have to go out and buy supplies. But I'm going to give you lots of options today on things that you may have at home that you can use. And I also wanted to show you these gorgeous little peg dolls that I have, students have made actually in past classes. They've been sitting around in my studio for a while now. And this is an alternative to drawing. So drawing's a good one for me to teach you because most people have the drawing materials at home. You might not necessarily have these materials, but I want to give you ideas today on lots of different ways that you can produce art and lots of different ways that a portrait can be done rather than the standard one. So these are some little pegs, and to make a cute little peg doll, you just need to buy these little wooden pegs, and you can buy them at the $2 shops or Kmart. They're actually pretty cheap. They're about $2 a pack. And kids love making things out of peg dolls. I found it's always been quite a big hit in my classes. And it's a great thing to do as a family. Like you could make a whole family of peg dolls. So just showing you a couple of these different little ones that I've got here. And this one's gorgeous. It's got a little fur coat on. So the peg dolls, all you do is the kids just draw a little face on them. You can use some wool for their hair. Or this one's great. This one's got like a little pom-pom hair. And then just wrap a little bit of material around their body and glue that on. Now, if you don't have any material, you can just colour in the peg with textures. So you really can just make peg dolls with just the pegs if you want. So this is about being versatile with what you've got. If all you've got is paper, make some paper clothes and stick them on. Okay, it's just use whatever you've got in the house, be creative, and you could come up with a family of peg dolls. So just an alternative to painting and drawing. Peg dolls. I've also in the past done quite a lot of portraits out of plasticine and clay. Again, I can't say that you've got it at home, so I couldn't do a whole lesson on it, but just to give you an idea that you can do 3D as well. And a lot of the really young kids love doing 3D things. So if you've got I've got some preschoolers watching today, and you happen to have some Play-Doh or clay or plasticine at home, why don't you get them to do a portrait using those materials rather than painting and drawing, which might actually be a bit more textural and exciting for them to get their hands in. So certainly with preschoolers in the past, one of my favourite, I'm just going to show you a picture from one of my classes. One of my favourite activities was, this is a preschool one, and we did portraits of Dad for Father's Day. And I just gave them a face shape, and then they used plasticine to add features to make it look like Dad and some things around Dad. So lots of different alternatives. Here's another one with just a few other examples of that activity we did. So if for a portrait your child has a little bit of trouble drawing and they're not quite at that stage, but they love doing things like that, Mum and Dad, you can just draw a head, and they could stick on plasticine or Play-Doh for the features, the noses, the eyes. So just giving you a couple of ideas here before we sort of set into today's lesson. Today I'm going to show you how to compose a family portrait so people are in a group. Because if you ever go and get your photo done as a family, you don't really all line up in a front and a row. If you ever think about it, do you all line up in a row? Not normally. You kind of gather Mum and Dad with the kids in front. So we're going to have a go at drawing one like this. I'm going to give you some ideas on how to do proportions of the face, some different eyes and noses. And I'm also going to keep talking throughout today's lesson on different ideas on ways you can change it up and do different things that are a little bit different. Because I'll be honest, I'm not usually a cut and paste normal art lesson. I love to have things that are just a little bit different. And what I really, really love doing is experimenting. You wouldn't know, but I've actually got a science degree, and my major love is actually experimenting and trying new things. So I always usually throw a little bit of science into my lessons. I'm not going to do that so much today, but I'm going to show you just a few fun experimental things that you might not have tried before that you can try. Okay, so today we're going to start with doing something a little bit different, a little bit of a warm-up exercise, because it's always fun to do a bit of a warm-up exercise. And we're going to do a blind contour portrait. So some of you might have done this before. This is a great one for all ages, whether you're really young or you're an adult. I'm an adult and I love doing these. It's just a really good, fun warm-up activity to do. So all you need for our warm-up activity is a pen and a paper. If you want to go and get some supplies for the rest of today's lesson, as I said, I'm going to give you lots of alternatives, but the main thing you want to do if you just want to follow along would probably be pen, paper, and some drawing materials. As I said, whatever you have, okay? And use whatever paints, pencils, oil pastels you've got at home. There's lots of alternatives. There's lots of ways of doing art. Okay, so we're going to do a blind contour portrait. I suggest that if you have someone else sitting with you from your family, I would draw them. So if you've got parent and child sitting next to each other, I want you to face each other and I want you to draw each other. For me, I've only got myself in this room, so I'm actually going to use a mirror and I'm going to draw myself using a mirror. If you are going to do a portrait of everyone in your family, then you'll need to mirror to do yourself, and then you can draw everyone else. So I suggest if you have the opportunity, draw everyone you have in your family in this method at some stage, either today or the next week. Another thing I probably should mention here, obviously we're drawing families. Families can be as extended as you want. We all have very, very different family circumstances. So some families might be 2 mums, 2 dads, it might just be mum, it might just be dad, there might be 1 kid, 10 kids. You might want to put grandma and grandpa into it. You might want to put your pet into your picture. I'm going to leave it very, very much up to you on how you want to draw your family. All families are so, so different today. It's absolutely lovely. I think they're very diverse in the way families are constructed, and I want you to draw your family how it is and how it's special to you. Okay, so for our blind contour portrait, we're going to have, I just want you to have someone in front of you or a mirror. The aim for this is that we're going to make sure, number one, we don't look at the paper and we don't lift our pen. Okay, so 2 things, don't look at the paper, don't lift the pen. This is a really, really good exercise in concentrating on what you're seeing. So you're not drawing what's in your head, which is how most kids draw, to be honest. Most kids draw from their imagination. They very rarely draw what they observe. something that we probably do more as we get older. So this time, kids, I want you not to actually draw what's in your head and how you love to do those big manga eyes and that. I want you to draw mum or dad or whoever's in front of you, and I want you to draw what you see, and we're not going to look and we're not going to lift our pen. So I'm just going to draw this one here. I'm going to look at a picture of myself in the mirror, and I'm not going to lift my pen, and I'm not going to look at the paper, which I can tell you is really, really hard. Okay. And there I am. And you can always have a little bit of a giggle after you've had a look at yourself and go, oh, I don't look like that. But that's what's so fun about them, that what you've done is you've really concentrated on the different elements. Okay, these can be, you can think of it a little bit like Picasso-ish, or that's the thing as well. And I will say, you'll hear me say this every week, art does not have to be perfect. There are artists out there that have done amazing portraits and pictures that are not perfect, and they've become famous for it. So please do not feel that your art needs to be perfect. So what I suggest you do is you actually do a portrait, blind contour picture of every person in your family if you can. Go up to Grandma and say, Grandma, do you mind if I do a picture of you? Get your paper and your pen and look at it and draw it. If you really like doing it with a mirror, you can do it yourself several times. Okay. I did a little bit of an experiment just earlier where I did a blind contour picture of everyone in my family and cut them out and then just stuck them on a piece of paper. So that could be your family portrait for today. So just giving you so many ideas today. If what you enjoy doing is faces, then you can do a family portrait with just the faces on it. If bodies are not your thing to draw, and bodies are hard to draw, but you really enjoy doing the faces, then let's draw everyone's faces in your family, cut them out and stick them on a piece of paper like this. Now, I could have coloured those in as well. I've just left them black and white. There's something about black and white pictures that I really like. I often don't colour things in, so don't feel that you always have to get the colours out as well, okay? Just black and white is lovely. And going on to that as well, another little example. I'm just going to show you examples as we go throughout today. Mother's Day one we did just, it must have been last year, is that we just did gold black and white. So we did pictures of mum, and then we just coloured them in with gold paint, and it turned out fabulous. Okay, so I just want you to remember, I'm giving you lots of little hints today. Portraits can be done in so many different ways, and they don't have to be boring. They can be really exciting by using the materials you've got. Those ones, literally white paper, black pen, and a little bit of gold paint. Okay, but say you don't have gold paint, that's all right. Maybe do those ones with, it could be with blue paint, just one other colour. Okay, so hopefully you finished your blind contour painting. We're going to do now just a quick little go at a few different eyes and noses. We did do this last week. So for those of you who watched last week and sent in your James Rizzi buildings or houses, can I just say thank you so much? I absolutely love seeing the pictures. And if you do a family portrait today, I would absolutely love to see your pictures at the end of today. Whatever it is, it might be just your blind contour portrait, or it could be your family composed together, whatever you want to do. All right, so we're going to just have a go at drawing a couple of eyes. So remember with eyes, they can just be normal circles. So we don't have to do them the normal shape. But the normal shape for eyes is usually sort of an almond shape with a circle, for the coloured bit, and then a circle for our pupil. Okay. Usually you do a little line above for the eyelid. You don't have to do that. And then some eyelashes. Eyelashes can be just on the top, and you can also do them on the bottom too if you want. Okay. This is just some normal eyes. Eyes are also, for our family portraits, you might want to have a bit of expression in your eyes, in that you might want to have people looking at each other, so they might be looking a certain direction, so that you've got your family looking at each other. We can have like a bit of it. Eyes can be quite expressive. We'll do them a bit more cartoony like if we want. We can do just quite round, but with eyelashes and maybe some cool eyebrows. So remember, eyebrows are something people often miss off faces, and they're really important. They're quite an important part of our face, so don't forget the eyebrows, okay? So eyebrows we can do lots up and down. We could do them different. Gives people a lot of different expression. They could just be curves. What else can we do? We can do, we just do one quite long one. Okay, so I want you to do eyebrows and your eyes. Just have a bit of a practice, but do them. Very much for portraits, I think you should do them how you like to do them. For this, I want you to do your family portrait in the way that you draw, and in the way that you feel comfortable drawing it that way, okay? There are no rights and wrongs. We can do some really, Dad's got really shaggy eyebrows, you might want to do really shaggy ones. The important thing with portraits is that you have to have a few things that identify that person. So if that person's, well, like you look at them and you remember they're really big eyes, I want you to draw their eyes really big. You kind of, it's like doing a cartoon, you kind of exaggerate those features that really stand out. So if Dad has a really big nose, you might want to draw a fairly big nose on it. I'm sure he won't be insulted, in that it will be easy. You want people to identify who it is. So we can do that if we're doing colour. Eye colour is an important thing, and hair colour really identifies who it is. And putting them in clothes that they like wearing. So my son just did a portrait of me just recently. I'll show you. And I wear this apron all the time. And he just did this in pencil, but it's me with my Sunnyside Art House apron on. And I wear my hair in a braid all the time. So he's in my hair in a braid. It's quite common for me to have braided hair. So do things that help you identify that person. Okay, so noses, my favourite way of a nose is just kind of like a little 7, upside down 7. It's my favourite way of doing a nose. But noses can, to be honest, just a little wiggle. If you're not into drawing noses, don't worry, just do a little wiggle, do 2 little dots, just don't make it too obvious, okay? You just want to do, sometimes you just do some little lines like that. Okay, or you can do a normal nose with the nostril. I want you to draw your nose how you like to draw noses. Mouths, again, if you really want, you can just do some really simple lines. Okay? Doesn't have to be too obvious, just to indicate there's a mouth there, but obviously we can do them with big lips. We can do mouths open. A bit like last week, we can draw teeth in them. I don't think you'd really have someone sticking tongue out. Actually, if you had a little sister or brother that sticks their tongue out at you, maybe you do want to do a tongue sticking out. I just want you to draw your mouth again, however you like drawing them, okay? Okay, so I'm going to show you now how to compose our face. So if you are just drawing one person, and for our family portraits, although I do love the idea that you're going to do your whole family, You might just want to do their faces on separate pieces of paper and did what I before, cut them out and stick them all together. Or if you find it's just too daunting to draw every member of your family today, then just concentrate on drawing one person and do that person that is special to you. So I'm not sure, some of you may have heard of the Young Archie competition, which is the young children's version of the Archibald Prize, which is run by the Gallery of New South Wales. And that is actually just, my students just did some submissions for that just recently actually. And what you had to do was you had to do a portrait of someone that's special to you. So that's something that you could do now. Now, unfortunately, entries have closed for that competition this year, but they do run that every year. And that could be something that you really like doing, is drawing portraits and you want to draw someone who is special to you. Many kids did their mum, their dad, their grandparents. They were really, really lovely. The winners of just from previous years, which I've looked back at, have just been gorgeous. And I would like to say also that it's really good when people, as I said before, have identifiers on them. So, for example, some winning entry for that, I think it was in 2019 last year, was Dad, and he had a doctor's outfit on. So that's a really identifier that it was Dad, because he had his uniform on and you could tell that that's what he wanted as a doctor. All right, so just a few proportions of the face. I'm not going to go into too much technical stuff because this is really only going to be relevant. I would say that preschoolers and early primary school kids, you're going to just draw faces how you like them, okay? So go for it. Just draw your person how you want to draw it. Preschoolers as well, they really, it's just trying to get a circle in for your face and maybe even just a fairly stick body and then some features in, okay? Doesn't matter. You're not really worrying too much about the proportions. But for those of you who are a little bit older, for adults, I'm just going to do very quick 5 minutes. I can't spend too long on this lesson doing that. I think, to be honest, how to draw a portrait with face proportions and how to do detailed eyes and noses and mouths is very much a lesson in itself, which is probably just not quite appropriate for today. So just quickly, faces are kind of egg shape. So, sorry, I'm on a very big angle here. So it's usually a little bit thinner at the bottom. Just going to move that down a little bit. A little bit thinner at the bottom and a little bit wider at the top. Okay. Now, I would normally do this with pencil, but I'm doing it with black texture so you can see it. But I would usually do an X on my face, and that's so I can help get my proportions right. So the eyes, and this is where pretty much all preschoolers and young kids will get it wrong. They will draw the eyes right up high in the face, but they actually are right in the middle. So that's why we draw a line across the middle, and that is where our eyes sit. Okay. So my eyes sit right in the middle. There's usually about an eye, however big you draw your eyes, there's usually about an eye's width between your two eyes as well. Just another little guide. Your ears are at the same level as your eyes. And don't forget ears. People often forget to draw their ears in. Okay? On that central line is where you're going to draw your nose. And then we're going to draw in our little mouth. Okay? This is where people often go wrong with faces, in that they draw their eyes far too high, where hairline is actually going to come in over your forehead and a little bit higher up than it. And hair's a really important one. That really identifies who you're drawing. Okay, so really have a think about, how is mum's hair long? Is it short? Is it curly? What colour is it if you're going to colour it in? If you're not going to colour it in, you might just want some real indicators, it's straight or curly and how long it is. So you can really get a gist of who it is that you're drawing. Now, obviously, we need to also draw a neck in and some shoulders. So that would be the starter face of a portrait if we were doing just one person who may be special to us. I would then really start to think about things that, like their outfit. Does mum love to wear blue? Does she always have a necklace on? Does mum always wear big earrings, or does she wear small earrings? Does dad like to wear a beanie all the time? I've had quite a few portraits of dads in the past where dad's had a beanie on, or a footy hat, or a footy scarf is a really good identifier for someone. So dad you might often think of him with his, I don't know, St Kilda scarf on or whatever, and that's how you want to draw him, and that's a real indicator that it's dad. Okay, so just have a think about the things that you're going to draw that's an indicator of them. You can also draw things if you're just drawing their head. You might want to draw things around them outside. Mum might like eating lollies, or mum might, it might be dad and he might like to ride bikes, so you draw a bike behind him. So you can also do that in a portrait as well. Okay. I'm going to now show you how to compose our portrait so that the family is in a group. Okay, so if you want to follow along to that, you can. If you really enjoyed just doing one person who is special to you, I want you to continue drawing that. If I've got some really young preschoolers with me today, or young primary, I just want you to draw your family in any way you like. Okay, there's no rights and wrongs. You could draw them all in a line. You could just draw their faces. You just draw it how you want. But I want you to think about what are the things, the elements that I can draw on mum and dad, or my baby brother, or my sister, that's going to help people identify that it's them. Is it that they always have a teddy in their arm? Is it that they love wearing hats? Just try and do some identifiers, and that will really help people know that it's your family. I'm just going to flip my board. Now, I've got a really big piece of paper here. That's only so that you can see it. If you are drawing today, I've mentioned this in previous ARTYnoons, just office paper, great for drawing. You could just draw it on office paper if you want. If you do have bigger paper at home, please feel free to use it. I don't know if I've mentioned before as well, the art pads that you get at Kmart for $5 in watercolour and just drawing paper, a great value for money in A3 size. So if you need to get some drawing paper, great way to just get some cheap paper. And these you can just stick together too. All right, so we're going to now have a look, compose our picture like this one here. So as I said earlier, normally when you do a portrait, or when you get your photo taken of a portrait, as a family, you don't all stand in a straight line. We all stand kind of gathered together. Okay? And we often, mum and dad might put their arms around each other and we're sort of gathered together. So we're going to try and have it for the older people out there. You might want to, we're going to try and do a little bit more of a gathered thing. The other thing I would say to all of you, whether you're doing it as a group or not, is that people often frame portraits and photos of people. And so it's always really nice to put a frame around your picture. So whether you're doing it as a group or not, I always think it's really nice to frame your piece of paper. It just gives it that really nice sort of extra look. Now you can just do, I've just done really boring plain there, but you could have done, you could do some swirls in the corners. If you've got gold paint or some coloured paint, you could paint or frame a particular colour. We could put really pretty patterns in through our frame. So have a little bit of a go at drawing a fun frame as well before you even start. Frame your picture so it looks like it's in a really pretty frame. Okay, that already looks better, I think, than just a plain piece of paper. It's got a really nice frame around it. I probably would have done the same pattern all the way around. I was just having a bit of fun experimenting. Okay, now to draw our group, I would normally do it in pencil first. You're not going to be able to see pencil if I draw on this piece of paper, so I'm going to do it in black texture, but I suggest you do it in pencil so that you can rub out some of the lines. So if I'm drawing a picture like this one, I'm going to have a horizon line, which is the line that separates our ground and our sky. And then I'm going to draw my family in. So mum and dad's heads I'm going to put above the horizon line, and the kids I'm going to put below, depending on how tall they are. Teenagers would probably sit in between. So in my family, I'm doing my family, which I've got a quite fairly boring family, I'll be honest. It's 2 adults and a boy and a girl. This is kind of my family, except the boy and the girl are away. 2 kids. But your family, you might have to do lots of kids, or it might just be one, or there might be no kids. You might just be doing just you or your partner, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to do dad. Mum for me is I'm shorter than my husband. And then I've got 2 kids, and admittedly, they're actually teenagers and they're quite tall. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to say most kids who are watching would be smaller. So I'm going to draw just under horizon line, maybe my one child and then another. These can be under these heads, because remember, we're doing it as a group. Make sure you don't do it so low down here you can't fit any legs in. So make sure the heads aren't too far down. Okay, so I've drawn my heads in. I'm now going to do, just work out, just going to do some necks. And then I'm going to work out where the bodies are going to go. So I'm going to do some little sticks. I would be doing this in pencil rather than texter, so I can rub these lines out. So I'm just making sure I'm kind of getting my group proportions together. So just work out, so just going to work out that I'm going to be able to fit this one like a skirt and some legs in. Okay, and then once you've done that, then you can start to draw in your arms. Now, Dad might have his arm around Mum's shoulders, so you might want to draw that, or just his hand on her shoulders. So this, if you're going to draw a family portrait like this, I think it looks great because it's very much like you would actually see people standing. Now remember, we're going to do some identifiers. So Dad might have, what you might do with a footy scarf on. Now I would have done this all in pencil first, and then I would do my textile lines in, so you can't see these lines down the middle of their tops, but for today's purposes. Now, Dad and Mum might be standing a little bit behind, so they might not be quite on the ground, their feet. They're just standing that little bit more behind. Now, there's so many different ways to draw dresses and clothes, and so I want you to draw it how you want to draw it. Today, it's about getting down the family in the clothes that they like wearing. Mum needs some legs. So I want you to keep, as I'm doing this, I want you to keep drawing your family how you want to do them. Okay, so once you've kind of got the bodies in, that's when I would then start to put in the hair, a real identifier of who we've got. So the young girl might have really long hair, so that's really obvious to who she is. And then I'd start doing, both Dad and the boy might have curly hair. And Mum's just got a short little bob. Okay. But remember to put, then we're going to start putting identifiers in like earrings. Mum always wears big earrings. Dad's got his footy scarf on. And once we've got those details in, We can then start putting in the faces too. So remember, I would do the cross, but I would do that in pencil and then start to put the eyes. It's got really shaggy eyebrows, some noses, and mouths. Now you might want to do them looking at each other. So remember, you can do the eyes looking at each other. You might want to do some funny expressions on the kids' faces. Maybe they pull faces at each other, or you be a bit cheeky. So this one here, I've got her with a cheeky smile. Now, what's lovely about drawing portraits is I have to say, whenever I do portraits in my art classes for Father's Day, Mother's Day, the kids are never that keen, to be honest. I usually go, oh, I'm not so sure. But once they get going, they always really, really get into it. And they're often very, very proud of what they've produced. So this is an art class where you've got to kind of stick with it for a little while. But once you keep going on it, it's really good. And I have to say, of the pictures that the parents keep, it's the portraits that they really love. And I really think if we could get some, I really hope you can send me in some great pictures at the end of today's class of your families as a portrait, because there would be nothing more wonderful than having had spent all this wonderful time as families together, then have an online art gallery of everyone's families drawn as portraits from these classes. So please, please, please give it a go, persist through it, and please send in your pictures at the end of it. So once you've got your faces and that in, then you might actually start to draw some things that identify your family in the background, certainly any pets. So I don't know if you've heard in these classes, we actually have ducks and chickens in my back garden, and sometimes they quack really loudly. So sorry about that, but I'd probably draw in maybe some ducks and some chickens. We've got a cat, so I might draw in a cat. You might have a dog, whatever animals you've got in your family as well, you might want to draw those in, because they're part of your family too, yeah? Draw your animal pets in as well. And then you could set the scene around you. You could draw things around your family that you like. Remember with our James Rizzi pictures last week, he had things like UFOs and that in the sky. You can do anything goes in art. So I don't feel that you can draw anything in the sky you want. It doesn't have to be real. It could be things that your family likes doing. You could draw yourself though in a scene of somewhere you like to be. So it might be as a family you love to go to the beach. This could be like a beach scene. You could definitely draw like the sunset if you love watching sunsets in the background, colour it in with some beautiful sunset background. You might like to go to the park, you might draw a tree. What do you like doing as a family, and what do your family members like? You could draw your house in the background. Wherever you want to draw in the background, you can. But once you've got your group of a family together like this, I would have done that. Mine looks a bit sketchy because I've done it all in Texto. You would have some cut now, be able to, once you've done it in pencil, then go over it with a Texto and rub out those pencil lines. And then your next step would be to colour it. So just talking about paints again a little bit. I'm just going to use a little bit of poster paint today. You can get them in these watercolour paints. You can get them in these trays, or you can get little palettes like this. Fantastic paints, very easy to clean up. The real trick with them is to go round and round enough times to make the colour dark enough. It's the one thing that people seem to not do, is make the colour dark enough. So go round and round and round as many times as you can to get the colour dark enough. Now, the reason I'm using this one is that this one's got pinks on it, and you can see from my skin, our family has very pink, light skin. But do the colour, whatever colour skin your family has, and people might have different colours depending on who they are. So usually when you're colouring in, you start with the colour of the face. You usually do the skin first, and then you can start colouring in the clothes. Does Mum love wearing red? Does whatever she likes wearing, you can put her in there. Okay? So then I'm just using this one because it's got a great pink. This one, often you might find you don't have a skin colour. A lot of paint sets like this one doesn't come with a skin colour. Don't worry too much about doing your person in the right colours as well, okay? This is art. Art can be anything. If you want to do your family with blue faces, go for it. It could be a little bit of pop art. And that was another little art class that we did a while back with Dad's, and we did them Andy Warhol style, and we printed them. And we did Dad in lots of bright colours, and I kind of loved it. So any colour goes. If you don't have pink, don't worry about it. You can leave the faces white, or if you want to mix up a brown colour, you can mix the primary colours together on one of your little palettes here. So that's some blue, some yellow, and some red, and it makes a kind of browny colour. It's always a good tip. But just colour your people in however you want, with whatever you want. It looks really lovely with pencils or oil pastels. Okay. And we're just going to paint them in. Now, I was just going to show you another little trick that I love to do instead of painting. So you saw that I showed you earlier the black and white with the gold. Looks really lovely, or just black and white. Another little colouring trick that I love to do is that sometimes if you've got no paint, you can use streamers. So I've told you in the past you can use food colouring. Another little, and last week, right, if you watched, we used textures and we added water to it, and that made it look like paint. Another little trick this week is these are just standard colour streamers that I got from the supermarket. I've just cut it up so I've got little strips. And instead of painting, I might want to add a bit of colour with my streamers. Now you can add them just random all over. And I'll show you, this is an example I did earlier. And that just gives it a really pretty rainbow effect. And that looks really nice. So if you don't want to colour the whole thing in, you could just do your streamer look. So with the streamer, you get it, you put it on your piece of paper, you get some water, and then you just dab it on. Don't paint it on, sort of more just dab until it's nice and wet. Now, normally I wouldn't be doing this up, but I think it should stick. Yep. Now, the longer you leave your streamers on, the darker the colour is. The darker the colour from the streamer goes into your paper. So I actually often put them on and then I let them dry, and then I pull them all off when they're dry. But younger kids really love doing this process, and they find that they just cannot resist from pulling them off pretty fast. So let them try and get them to keep them on as long as possible. Maybe tell them they have to do a whole section before they pull any off. So you see, I'm not painting it on, I'm just dabbing, because all I'm doing is trying to get enough water on that streamer to hold it on. And you can overlap them. This is a great way of mixing colours. So have a look what happens when I add a blue and a yellow together with that little section in the middle go green. So again, this is doing it not the real colours, we're doing it lots of bright colours, and that's okay too. Okay? So I could have done it as I was doing there with the normal colours, or I can do it with my streamers. I'm just adding water and adding colour. Looks like paint, but we're not using paint. We are just using cheap streamers that we got from the supermarket. So many quick, easy ways of doing painting with supplies that are not that expensive. So it looks really lovely if you keep doing that all over your whole thing, but you might just want to do a few. So with my preschool class, we did this a few years ago. And I'm just going to show you another picture from my Instagram page of my preschoolers did a self-portrait on paper with black and white. We did a streamer background, so just what I was showing you then, and then we cut out the white self-portrait and stuck it on that streamer background. So that's one way of doing it, or the other way is to do your black and white picture and then just do the streamers right on top, which is a little bit easier. But this way, if you do this gives you a few goes of doing your self-portraits until you're happy with them, and then you do the background. So I'm just showing you preschoolers can do family portraits. Okay, this, the way I've shown you here, is pretty complex. That would be a little bit more older primary and adults. For preschoolers, I want you to give it a go. Just draw black and white, and then you could do your streamers on top, or you could colour it with whatever materials you've got. If you did have some clay in that home, as I said earlier, you can do some clay or plasticine and add some features that way. And another little idea that we've done for both Mother's Day and Father's Day, I've done in the past, and I just thought I'd bring it up because I was just going through all my old files when you're doing a lesson on portraits. Okay, well, what have I done in the past? And for a couple of years, we have used old CD cases and drawn on them. And this is Father's Day from a few years back. But we have actually just drawn our portraits on a CD case, and one side's been us and one side's been Mum or Dad. This was a Dad's one. And again, these ones show really lovely scenes of people who've done things about them that they love about Mum and Dad. Okay, so just different surfaces we can use as well. If we don't want to use something different than paper, we can. I think I've mentioned before, cardboard boxes from cereal boxes, great thing to draw on. But CD boxes, any materials you can get your hands on, just use them and draw on them. They doesn't have to be what you would normally think. So I'm just going to show you those probably started to colour a bit. Yep. So once your cut streamer has been on there a while, you can pull it off and it leaves some really lovely colour in the background. To be honest, one of the funnest parts is pulling it off. And you can see that's been really good because it's made some green. So it will teach the kids a little bit of colour theory as well. So we've got so many different options on how to do a portrait and how to do a family portrait. I don't think we need to see them all the same. So you can do your family as a group. You could draw just the heads. Like we did, they're my blind contour portraits, but you could just draw heads what you want and just stick them on a piece of paper. We can do our streamer look. I did in art class a couple of years ago, we did Dad, but we did him with oil pastel. Now, the reason this has a really, really long neck is that we did that based on a famous artist who has, whose pictures have very, very long necks. And I have done with clay before as well. So just to show you some clay portraits. So here's some more ones with just oil pastels. As I said, we purposely did long necks in that one. And one of my favourite Father's Day portraits that we did one year was with clay faces. So if you've got a little bit of clay at home, air dry clay or Play-Doh or plasticine, you can actually draw the face, to make the face, sorry, not draw it, make it out of plasticine and that. And you can even draw the background. This is mixed media, okay? So this is where we have done clay faces, but oil pastel backgrounds. So many different ways we can mix. Now, the final idea I want to keep in mind, and also I've got a lovely picture here of a portrait in chalk pastel. So feel free to do it in chalks too. There's some inspiration when it's adults out there if you want to do a really realistic chalk pastel one. My final thing I wanted to mention is that with the limited art supplies that we've got, some of you might have very limited at home, and I haven't mentioned before, but I'm also a big believer of drawing on the iPad. I know that you feel that kids have been drawing lots and lots on the screens, and maybe it's a chance to do some art and art craft and get away. But if you don't have any art supplies, they are still learning a lot by drawing. And David Hockney had an art exhibition at the NGV a couple of years ago, and he is a big person of portraits. He's done many self-portraits, but he also does quite a lot of portraits of famous people as well. And this picture here is a self-portrait of himself, and he has done that on the iPad. So if you have no art materials at home, but the kids really, that's the only way you can get them to do art, is to do it on a screen, then let them use some of those drawing apps, and there's many out there. Most of them are free, and you can draw using your finger or using a stylus, and you can draw on the iPad. And I still think that is a great way to do some art, just to be able to do some. Okay. I think that probably concludes today. I hope I haven't given you too many ideas and now you're stuck as to what to do. I certainly think that with portraits, there's just so many ways we can do it. Stick with it, and I'd really, really love to see some family portraits. I think it's a perfect time. It is going to be a time in our lives when it's time to do a family portrait. It is now. So looking forward to seeing them. Please send them through and put them on the Facebook page. Thank you again to Glen Ira for hosting these ARTYnoons. I look forward to seeing you all next week at the same time, Saturday at 3 o'clock. And thanks very much. Bye for now.